Are you saying Tanner Gilliland copyright infringed Don Bradley in 2013, and this is an injustice that has not been remediated?
We have to go redeem my copyright. We have to organize a camp to march to go redeem my copyright.
Roving on over the mounds, picking up their bones. This is where they live. This is where they died. There in the heartland they roam.
What a stupid song. I'm sorry. I'm looking at these lyrics. These lyrics are terrible.
I'm spending money like I just got paid. $100 bills, tell them keep the change. Come on.
The story of Zelf was presented by Joseph Smith, functioning as a kind of allegory.
Pop a bottle, about to make it rain. Let me give you something now to celebrate. Come on.
So I'm going to take a new approach to the Zelf narrative, put it in a different context.
And if you're wondering why I move the way I do, I just feel so good.
Anybody that can send me a redacted birth certificate of a Mormon child named Zelf, the first one gets a free t-shirt.
Technically, it's onondagus, like dog.
D-A-W-G.
Yeah. His hip bone was brought to Utah and buried. We need to dig it up for you for future hip transplant.
Just feel so good.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I'm your host, Cardinalus, and today I'm joined in the studio by Kwaku L, as well as a killer cast. In the second seat, we got Brad Whitbeck and Don Bradley, here to take Zelf off the shelf. There is new light and knowledge, additional gnosis about one ancient warrior priest.
Oh my gosh.
Zelf, who has been on the shelf.
Wait, put that picture of Zelf back up.
But put that picture of Zelf back up.
Look,
right here.
I love this picture of Zelf so much. It's so fun. Like,
dude, it gets me stoked every time. Gets me stoked every time.
First off,
yes.
He's got like a Spartan falcata sword for some reason, and I love it. I think it looks great.
There's like a Roman chest plate with Apache foot gear mixed with
now that chest plate is actually very much accurate to like what Heartlanders think the chest plate would have looked like, right? They have copper chest plates found in that area.
So I'm the ignorant one.
No.
What about the Spirit Halloween spear? Is the Spirit Halloween spear 100% accurate as well?
No, that I can't vouch for.
You can't vouch for that one? Okay,
no.
Speaking of, I decided to, we said Zelf, so I was like, I wonder how Zelf on the Shelf is doing, like that YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I just went to it, and they're at 37,000 subscribers.
What?
They've got a lot of followers.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that.
Dang.
Dude, Zelf is a powerful shaman who also brings the subs. Who knows? Hopefully this will boost our SEO as well by taking him off the shelf. We're going to be those people that fight over where he stays. So anyway, okay, we've got a fun little ditty here prepared by Don Bradley, who's bringing new light and knowledge about this. Should we call him a war hero? I don't know. What do I just about Zelf? I don't know a lot about Zelf, I confess, but I have heard the name, and I know that he's a really cool sub character in Richard Rich's Living Scriptures cartoons.
Oh yeah.
So
in the
anyway,
Samuel the Lamanite episode.
Exactly. Don, take it away. What do we need to know about Zelf and his proverbial shelf?
Yes. So Zelf, most people probably know watching this. The Zelf story is one that Joseph Smith narrates during the March of Zion's camp. This is 1834. So a number of the early Latter-day Saint men are marching from Kirtland, Ohio to Missouri, Zion, all right, because the saints in Missouri are being persecuted. And so Zion's camp is going there in order to redeem the land of Zion, so to liberate Zion. So they see themselves as like fighting for freedom.
Nice.
Right?
Rock on.
And on the way from Ohio to Missouri, they pass through Illinois. And they encounter a Native American burial mound there. And they are very familiar with these at that period of time. They know what these look like, what these are. They dig into them, right? And
which, by the way, to our modern sensibilities,
yes.
Isn't that wild? Just like the thought of, you can't dig a pit in my home county of Los Angeles within 3,000 feet of what might be a potential archaeological site without getting 15 approvals. Meanwhile, the pioneers could like roll by and be like, hey, there's another Indian burial mound. Let's see
we recognize that it's morally problematic because if you were to go like Cardin, if we were just to be walking around and we're like, hey, there's this old pioneer cemetery here. Yeah. Let's just start digging and see what we find.
I fear the county government more than I do the morality, but no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, yeah, exactly. I hear you.
So, but they dig into this mound and they find just a few feet down, they find a skeleton. And in between some of the back ribs of the skeleton, they find an arrow point. Mm-hmm. So they bring these bones and this arrow point to JosephSmith. He examines them. He goes, lies down in his wagon for a while. And later on, he tells them that this skeleton belonged to Zelf, who was a man of God and a white Lamanite warrior. And we'll talk a little bit more later about like what specifically did he say about this figure and what does it all mean. But like the way that, so what I want to, part of what I want to do is look at the Zelf narrative in its original context. So what Zelf means to people now is Book of Mormon geography debates. That's the significance Zelf has in the modern mind. Okay. And I think that's part of why he ends up in the, title of the Zelf on the Shelf podcast is because Zelf, from the vantage point of like most Book of Mormon scholars, academic scholars who adopt a limited Mesoamerican geography model, Zelf becomes kind of an embarrassment where they want to downplay the figure of Zelf. Whereas for Heartland, people who adopt the Heartland geography, which is really based in the United States, right? They want to say, well, there you go. Like the fact that this white Lamanite warrior was found in Illinois means that the U.S. is the location of Book of Mormon events. All right.
So yeah, so the Heartlanders love it because they view it as like the smoking gun. Maybe not the smoking gun, but the smoking spear. The smoking, what is it?
Smoking arrowhead.
The smoking arrowhead. Yeah. The smoking, yeah, exactly. Okay, so keep going, man.
Okay. So I originally gave some of the stuff I'm going to talk about today, I originally presented at Mormon History Association back in 2010. And Brad, when I gave this talk, I started with these two quotes. Do you want to read that second one there?
Oh, yeah. That Zelf upon the shelf. I have talked to him myself. Dr. Seuss.
So this is 2010. So this is 13 years ago, right? 13 and a half years ago.
Wow.
So I connected Zelf with Dr. Seuss and that shelf way back before the podcast of this name was started. Just saying.
Are you saying that, what's his name? Tyler Gilliland? Quaker, what's his name?
Tanner.
Tanner. Are you saying Tanner Gilliland copyright infringed Don Bradley in 2013 and this is an injustice that has not been remediated?
We have to go redeem my copyright. We have to organize a camp to march to go redeem my copyright. No, I have no copyright. But anyway,
like all for this.
Rock on.
I'm like, guys, whoa.
I don't know who came up with the name. I don't know if it was Tanner or Samantha. I don't know who. I don't know who's like the power.
That's a great name.
We don't know who came up with it, but we know who they copied. Just like John DeLynn copied Thrive. It looks like Zelf on the Shelf copied freaking Don Bradley, and this is an injustice. This is an injustice that has gone on too long. So anyway, tell us more about our brother Zelf.
So, as I was saying, in the original Zelf, well, I guess a preface maybe to this. So I'm going to take a new approach to the Zelf narrative, put it in a different context. So instead of the context of modern debates over Book of Mormon geography, why don't we take the story of Zelf and put it in the original context in which the story was actually told by JosephSmith.
Okay, hit it.
And see what that might reveal about the story. So what I'm going to propose is that the story of Zelf was presented by JosephSmith functioning as a kind of allegory. Okay. Now, whether that's his personal intention, which it may well have been, or whether this would be seen as like a divine intention for this to act as an allegory, or just a subconscious intention, or whatever, right?
So
like, I'm not trying to make a judgment on that.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying, okay, well, it's possible that the Zelf narrative might have been a little bit more like the allegory of the olive tree in the book of Jacob. We weren't actually trying to say, this is the vineyard of the Lord. We're kind of saying, this is the vineyard of the Lord more broadly, in kind of like almost like a parable, right?
Right, like a parable. So an analogy. There are different. Jesus tells different parables. You mentioned the allegory of Zenos in the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon sometimes even tells narratives where it's not giving an explicit allegory. It's actually just talking about events, but it says some of the things in ways that seem allegorical. So, for instance, in Alma 10, Alma and Amulek are in the land of Ammoni. They are having this sort of debate or argument with two lawyers there who are named Zeezrom and Antiona. And right in the middle of that story, the Mormon chooses to throw in a description of the Nephite monetary system. And we're like, why does he throw it in right there, right? When he does, two of the names of monetary denominations among the Nephites that he gives are the Ezrom and the Antion. Now notice the names of the two lawyers, okay? Zeezrom and Antion, right? So basically you're just taking the names of a couple of these kinds of money and you're adding a prefix and a suffix. So it's like, Mr. McMoney and Mr. Goldman or something, and it's like, oh, okay, I get it.
Goldbarberg or something.
Right. And so it's actually, there's something allegorical here. There's a story here that's about greed. And so the names are being structured in a way that's supposed to put that across. Now, he never says, hey, I'm telling you something here that's partly allegorical, but that's exactly what he's doing nonetheless.
And if I understand it correctly, you're saying that the, not depravity, but the obviousness of the correlation between those names and then the monetary units in an ancient language would have been immediately perceived as an allegory,
well,
right?
It's supposed to signal that whether we as the audience pick up on it or not, it's clearly supposed to signal that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And it may be the case. It doesn't necessarily mean those two lawyers didn't exist.
Sure.
But it's, hey, he named them these things to signal this allegorical
We're withholding their names to protect the innocent. And we're changing them.
Changing their names to condemn the guilty, actually, is what's going on here.
Rock on. Okay, so that might be what's happening with Zelf.
Right. So I'm going to suggest that when we put the Zelf narrative in the original context in which Joseph Smith delivers it, it's actually allegory. Now, something to discuss further, maybe to address just a little bit more sort of the way that Zelf is used as sort of a football, right, between people arguing for different sorts of Book of Mormon geography. I've got a quote here from a BYU professor and Book of Mormon scholar Noel Reynolds. So he once said, there are two types of Book of Mormon scholars, those who have Zelf respect and those who do not. Okay? So people who... Basically, these map onto people who are into the Heartland model and people who are not, right? So people will either elevate the Zelf story or reduce the Zelf story depending on their geography model. So if you favor a Mesoamerican model, you're like, that Zelf story, we don't really know that much about that. I'm not really sure Joseph Smith said this or that, Okay, but if you think that there's the Heartland model is correct, you're going to be like, O Zelf. In fact, literally, you're going to be like, O Zelf, right?
Because, is that where O Zelf comes from? We did a podcast once, and there's a hymn. Oh, bro.
Yeah,
okay, Don, just give me 30 seconds. Have you ever seen the O Zelf hymn?
I have never had the privilege of singing the O Zelf hymn. I can tell you that. I wish we knew the tune here.
Don. Yes. Oh, here it is, bro. Look at that. O Zelf, words and music by K. Star Henniger. Dude, that is such a Mormon thing to do. Give your, say all three of your names, like Dallin H. Oaks, Ulysses R. Suarez, or whatever it is, So they did screw up by not giving one of them an abbreviation.
Ellis, right?
Yeah, well, it should have been by K. Star Henniger or K.S. Henniger.
Well,
but either way,
they just abbreviate K, you still say the exact same
exactly.
thing. So there you go.
Been awesome.
What a stupid song. I'm sorry. I'm looking at these lyrics. These lyrics are terrible.
Hey,
wandering over the plains of the Nephites.
Without knowing the meter,
those ones
without knowing the tune, it's impossible to
Did you
judge.
just interrupt my singing?
Yes, because you don't know what the tune is.
Wandering over the plains of the Nephites, Joseph recounted those once beloved people, roving on over the mounds, picking up their bones. This is where they lived. This is where they died. There in the heartland they roamed.
Does it rhyme mounds and bones?
Is that pretty good?
No, this is trash. And here's what. Another thing.
I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt, and then they rhyme mounds with bones.
Everything's right on the nose.
How Scottish do you have to be for those words to actually rhyme?
It's all in the nose. They're just describing it. It's a hymn describing. There's no poeticism. It's just like, Zelf was the guy who lived here. Sing this. It's pointless. It's stupid. If I was ever in a chapel and they were singing this, I would interrupt the service.
That bad, huh?
Yes.
Oh, Zelf. I don't know. I think it's kind of got a little bit of I think it's got some charm to it. So anyway, Don Bradley, you say it might be allegorical. I just have one small question as you're going along. Sure. You can answer along the way as you finish your story. Because, unfortunately we have limited time here. The only context I've really known Zelf in was kind of like a mini Kinderhook plates where people have tried to beat believers over the head and say Joseph Smith wasn't a prophet because, Zelf, and they point to Zelf, and they can never explain to me why not. But that's the political football. I guess maybe I've never known Zelf as a political football used for geographic models like you suggest. Totally. I've only understood him really as kind of like a miniature Kinderhook plates thing, but I am ignorant to it. And it sounds like if he's allegorical for both geographic models, he could be allegorical as well for those that want to prove or disprove Joseph Smith's prophetic mantle, right?
I think that the reason why Zelf becomes something that's used by critics is precisely because Zelf does factor into the geographical models in a way that goes against what most Book of Mormon scholars and apologists are arguing about where the Book of Mormon happened.
Okay, fair enough.
So the idea is it doesn't match the Mesoamerican model. So it's counted against the Book of Mormon because it's counted against the Mesoamerican model, essentially, right? So first, the going into the Zelf story, then how much do we really know about the Zelf story, right? So in 1834, during the March of Zion's Camp, several of the men who were part of Zion's Camp, Reuben McBride, Moses Martin, Wilford Woodruff, and Levi Hancock, kept contemporaneous records of what Joseph Smith said. And so because we have those 4 contemporaneous accounts, several years later, we have the History of the Church account, I think written in 1842, during Joseph Smith's lifetime. And then we have other later accounts from Heber C. Kimball and others who were present, right? And these accounts, especially those early accounts, they agree on a number of things. And so there are things that we can know with great confidence about what Joseph Smith said. So first, Joseph said that these bones belong to a guy named Zelf. Okay, we can be certain of that because the early accounts agree on this. Then,
which, by the way, as you say that, anybody that can send me a redacted birth certificate of a Mormon child named Zelf, the first one gets a free t-shirt. When we make that I have Zelf respect t-shirt, the first one is going to the first kid named, because I've met an Abinadi, I've met a Nephi, and I've met an Ammon at church, but I ain't never met no Zelf. That's a hardcore Heartlander that's going to name his kid Zelf.
I'm claiming the name on Onondagas for myself. But
okay, cool. Rock on. Keep going.
So, which is part of the Zelf story. So, Joseph Smith says that Zelf was a man of God, and reportedly says that Zelf was a quote unquote white Lamanite. And so, if he's saying that Zelf was a soldier. So who is he telling this to? Well, this is the March of Zion's Camp. He's telling this to
soldiers.
Yeah. Right? So he's talking to soldiers about a soldier. Well, that's going to connect for them, right?
Yeah.
So then what kind of soldier was he? Well, he was a man of God. He was a righteous soldier. He says he was fighting under Prophet General Onondagas. So what's the worst thing that can happen to the soldiers in Zion's Camp? Well, theoretically, they could die fighting, right? Yeah. So if they did... where would they go? Well, where is Zelf now? I mean, if Zelf was a righteous warrior fighting under a prophet and he died in the process, he went to his reward, right? Yeah. He's in heaven. So the worst thing that can happen to them is they can go to heaven. So there's an implicit positive exhortation for them, be like Zelf, be courageous, fight. Even if you die, you're fine, right? Zelf's fighting under this prophet Onondagas. Well, soldiers serving under a prophet general? In this narrative,
it's pretty analogous.
He's telling this, it's completely analogous. Yeah. They are soldiers serving under a prophet general, Joseph Smith. The name Onondagas. So where does this name come from? Right?
It's like a Gen Z slang, right? Like you own Dagas, right?
Yeah.
You made that connection,
it's
bro.
Technically, it's Onondagas, like dog.
D-A-W-G.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Totally. And
not Gen Z
in
at all,
addition to that...
I have no clue what you're. It sounds like having a stroke.
And it's the name of a Native American tribe, one of the 5 nations, 6 nations.
Okay.
Like Iroquois tribes. Where did they live? They lived in upstate New York.
Yeah.
So if you look at where Palmyra is, it's in Wayne County, New York. There's one intervening county. I think it's Yates County. And then there's another county after it, Onondaga County. This is traditional Onondaga land.
Rock on.
So the name Onondagas evokes upstate New York, where Joseph Smith was from.
Yeah.
So this is a story about a righteous soldier serving under the direction of a prophet general whose name happens to connect with the area that Joseph Smith is from.
So are you saying that this is like so obviously analogous to Zion's camp, you think it couldn't be interpreted as anything else but an allegory?
So I think in the context, it's got to be seen that these would not be coincidental relationships. These are significant. These are meaningful. Mm-hmm. So then in the accounts, we are told also that Joseph had said that the prophet Onondagas was known from the sea east to the Rocky Mountains. Well, at this time, they were expanding their understanding of Zion. So Zion wasn't just a city, right, where they're going to march out to help redeem the place for the city of Zion. Zion was a larger land. And so hence we have the idea that at that time of stakes of Zion. So even though Kirtland is several hundred miles from where they're going in Missouri, it's one of the stakes of Zion. So they had, by this time, they'd formed the idea, we're told, that all the way from the Atlantic to the Rocky Mountains was the land of Zion. Well, that's the exact area that Joseph Smith says this prophet Onondagas
and that's
was known.
the argument that the Strangites make about that letter where Joseph Smith told James Strang, you know, thou art to be the leader in this stake in Zion. And the big question was, okay, did he mean that stake out there in just that small area? Or did he mean the entire essence of Zion as a people and the Mormon church? Because back then there was not a finite definition of what a stake in Zion was.
Right. But they were getting a larger sense of what the land of Zion included, which also was the area of the United States at the time. After the Louisiana Purchase from the Atlantic to the Rocky Mountains.
So they were the original Heartlanders.
Yes. So Joseph is also, and I know there might be some question about how original this detail is, but he also reported to have said that Zelf died in the last great struggle between the Nephites and the Lamanites. There's an apocalyptic context here, right? So just like Zelf fought in an apocalyptic battle, these are the Latter-day Saints marching to redeem Zion. That's inherently apocalyptic. Okay, so far we've explained all the elements of the Zelf story based just on its context, the March of Zion's camp, except one element, okay? Ooh. And that element is the name Zelf itself, okay? Now,
Zelf
itself, yes.
Okay,
so
cool.
What, if you are a soldier marching in Zion's camp, Joseph Smith is like this prophet Onondagas. Who are you like? Who is Zelf like?
Zelf is like you.
Right. Zelf is like you.
He's the warrior. You're the warrior. Yeah.
And what word in the English language is most like the name Zelf?
The self.
Self, right? Which is why that pun that Noel Reynolds made works, right? Zelf-respect, because it sounds just like self-respect, right?
Dude.
So Onondagas is like Joseph Smith. He's from the area his name associates him with upstate New York, where Joseph Smith's from. Zelf, the name associates him with yourself. This is an allegory.
This is like Carl Jung
Joseph
stuff.
Smith is Onondagas. You are Zelf. You yourself are Zelf. And so there's a message here. This is not Joseph Smith giving I'm now going to give you a lecture on Book of Mormon geography. We're going to put pins on the map to show you where the Nephites were.
And here's a burial mound that proves it.
This is exhortation to the members of Zion's camp. That's the context in which this makes sense.
And exhortation so obvious that the principal character is named linguistically against the terminology of the self. This is literally like archetypal Carl Jung stuff, but we just didn't pick up on it because we were too busy arguing.
So what's the controversy?
So once you know what the actual original context of the Zelf narrative is and how it fits, then it's kind of like, okay, yeah, like what's the big deal? Well, the controversy is people are using this to try to establish Book of Mormon geography. Well, if there was this Nephite or White Lamanite or whatever in Illinois, then the Book of Mormon events must have happened up there in the U.S., not down in Central America. So that's what people are fighting about.
Okay, I thought there was like a skeleton or something.
Yeah, there's a skeleton.
Didn't the guy like dig up some body and said, "Oh, it's Zelf"?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and also another
but it was
problem
just a
is,
dead guy.
well, a lot of people try and use it as also proof positive that Joseph Smith wasn't a prophet. In the same way they try and say that, Kindle plates are proof positive he wasn't a prophet, but they end up recycling tropes and straw men that aren't supported by the original historical documents. When you look at it, there's actually a lot more leeway for what the Zelf story is, and that's Don Bradley is suggesting here, that it's allegorical.
Don was this. You gave the most entertaining explanation of this, because every other time anyone's ever talked about Zelf, it was like Carton's bucket of cream story. I'm like, why do I care about he said during a march with a bunch? Well, who cares?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah, this is the most entertaining I've ever been, because I've never given two craps about this story. I know I'm supposed to. It's like, there's parts of church history you're like, oh, here's a really cool thing from Eliza R. Snow. Oh, I definitely want to read it. Here's a cool thing from Bathsheba W. Smith. I might. They're just different people. Like, you care about those people, you don't really care. I've never cared about Zelf.
Well, so now you care because now you are Zelf.
Yeah.
Right? So those shirts people did or whatever over in France after Charlie Hebdo was attacked, where I am Je suis Charlie Hebdo or whatever.
Yeah.
I am Zelf, right? There you go.
Dude, I'm digging it. That's awesome.
Well, so speaking of digging, his hip bone was brought to Utah and buried. We need to dig it up for you for future hip transplant for you, I think.
All right. I do.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, what's the story behind that?
Okay.
They dug up bones, right?
Yeah.
We're going to have to get to that as bonus materials afterwards. For now, if you want to see this or more, check us out on wardradio.com. This is FM 98.1 and AM 1220 KHTS. We will be back in a flash.
So good.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. It was fun to shoot, and it was fun to edit, and we're super glad that you can hang out with us. Before we go on to the next video, I need you to do 3 things, okay? First, yes, you gotta like, you gotta share, you gotta subscribe, all of that jazz. Please do it. It helps us with the algorithms, and it also helps your friends know about all of our good content. Second, I need you, if you're into this kind of thing, to check out Brad's book, Dragon Thief. My buddy Brad is super talented, but he's a horrible self-promoter, and he's too humble and nice to try and tell people to go buy his book, so I have to do it for him. But he doesn't know I'm doing this. This is kind of a surprise. He has not paid me for this. I don't get any kickbacks, though I should, Brad. So when you watch this, let's consider helping a brother out. No, I'm totally just kidding. Dragon Thief is the name of the book, and there's even a sequel. I believe it's called Dragon Guard coming out, okay? I'm in the middle of the first book, so I can't talk about the second one yet, but it's really cool. I mean, this is good stuff, and it's got the reviews to prove it. He's winning all kinds of awards and has become an actual international bestseller. And the best part is, this is how he stays financially independent and able to come on our show. He's an author. He's a professional author. So buy his book, give it a review on Amazon. It's available wherever fine books are sold, which nowadays pretty much unfortunately just means Amazon. Buy a copy, get it shipped to your house, buy a copy for your friends, tell your friends about it, get a copy for your abuela. I don't care if she speaks another language and doesn't read English, get one for her too. The book is awesome. You will enjoy it, I promise. And the third thing you gotta do is, if you can, please consider joining this channel or supporting us through the Cash App or Venmo. We're on all those platforms, and that's really what keeps these lights on. So, in an attention economy, thank you for paying attention to this video and for watching this film and just hanging out with us here. It's been an absolute blast. If you guys want to see anything more of what we have to offer, please check us out on wardradio.com. Please send us cash if you can. Please share this with your friends if you can. And before you go, like and share. And if you haven't subscribed, shame on you. Subscribe or die.